massive wildfire in northern Ukraine is spreading, with the flames rapidly spreading towards the former Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Emergency crews are trying to control the fire, which already engulfs a large part of a 400-hectare forest and is about 20 kilometers from the Chernobyl itself. Now, the zone is heavily contaminated by radiation after the world's worst nuclear power accident ever, which was in 1986.
I think the first lesson is that this is a technology that can destroy a nation. I was reading Mikhail Gorbachev's memoirs, and he claims that it was Chernobyl, not perestroika, that destroyed the Soviet Union.
You can see the sarcophagus which is surrounding the exploded reactor. They built the cement tomb to try and control the radioactivity inside, but because they had to build it in a hurry, it's actually in a very fragile condition. There's like untold quantities of water which comes in as rainfall through the cracks, and it's literally hanging, and the roof is about to collapse inside. And yet in 1986 it only spewed out about 3% of its full potential, and the balance is actually still remaining inside, which is a very scary thought. And the scientists say that the next Chernobyl will be Chernobyl itself. It's just to think that that innocuous little complex over there, that building, has caused the destruction of 9 million lives, half of which are children under the age of 5. You know, there's nothing that shows the sort of violence of what came out of there, because, I mean, radiation is invisible. So I suppose my predominant emotion is of like really deep sadness, especially when you know the kids and, you know, you see the look in their eyes, you know, the children that know themselves that there's no hope in their future.
А у вас тоже щитовидка у всех, да? Да. Все, да? И ты тоже?
Все.
А можно так посмотреть? Покажите, что у вас было. А вы все из Гомельской области или сразу? Breast region as well.
Is it painful to talk?
Болит даже разговаривать, да?
Most people aren't familiar with, I mean, we all know, I think, at this point that radioactivity and cancer go together, but like heart problems, heart disease, how does that connect?
Well, one of the most fascinating things that I learned when I was rewriting the text of the book and going through all the data was one of the scientists, Bandashevsky, had done a study that showed that the cesium-137 levels in children were the same as he had found in test animals and were causing heart damage.
60% have got ECG modification. That means what is ECG? This is electrocardiogram. It means your heart's not working. It means that 60% of the children who've got this level, 12 to 25 becquerels per kilogram, their heart isn't working. Isn't this extraordinary?
Я 7 лет болею.
Тебе сейчас сколько?
Мне уже 14.
7 лет болеешь, да? Чем болеешь?
Системно-красная лучанка.
А что у тебя болит, расскажи?
У меня болело сердце. Что?
How would that, what would be the relationship there between radioactivity and a deterioration of intellectual capability?
Well, while a mother is pregnant, she is eating food, and what happened was that most of the people either did not know or they did not have access to food that was not contaminated. These isotopes are taken into the body while a woman is pregnant. They are transported through her body to the unborn and damage the heart, the lungs.
Are all these kids mentally ill?
It's a mixed unit altogether, so you can find that you have children in here that are, you know, that are perfectly normal, but they have physical disabilities, and that's kind of sad.
И не болит, если ты садишься?
Нет.
А как ты вот двигаешься? Вот так и передвигаешься, а в школу?
А в школу меня носят.
Кем ты хочешь быть?
Врачом.
To be a doctor. А почему? Почему ты такую профессию выбрал?
Чтобы лечить детей.
In December of 2011, the Prime Minister at that time, Prime Minister Noda, made an official declaration that the accident at Fukushima nuclear power plant number 1 had been brought to a close. My reaction on hearing his words were, "Stop kidding." The reality is that even though 4 years have passed, the accident situation has not yet been brought to a close at all. There was a danger that the spent fuel rods in that spent fuel pool might eventually, because they were still continuing to emit heat, that eventually all the water in that pool would dry up. And if the pool water would all dry up, that would create a situation where the spent fuel rods would begin to melt themselves. And that would create a terrible situation where probably people in the Tokyo area would have to evacuate as well. Even as we sit here talking today, every single moment, people in this area, centered primarily around the Fukushima prefecture area, are receiving radiation. And this being irradiated, being exposed to radiation situation will continue for years to come, for decades to come, possibly for centuries to come. TEPCO last year did some research. They took water samples from wells that were in the facility. And from one of the wells, they were able to get this kind of data. This was in October of last year. With cesium-137, the allowed limit is only 90 becquerels per liter, but it's 190,000 becquerels per liter that were discovered in this well. So that's over 2,000 times the legal limit of emissions allowed into the environment. It is often said that radioactivity or radiation is something that is very difficult to sense using any of the 5 senses, and that's only a normal, that makes sense, because if you were able to actually sense the radioactive materials, it would be of such an amount that you would immediately die. However, although what I've been describing is quite grave, we have an even more serious issue facing us, which is the reactor cores have melted in units 1 to 3. What are we going to do about that? Number 1 plant accident is several hundred times the equivalent of what was emitted by the Hiroshima bomb. And it is an ongoing process. It is not yet finished. And the only possible way we can eventually deal with this accident is to do what was done in Chernobyl, which is to create a concrete coffin or sarcophagus for the facility.